Well, try as it may, the Biden White House cannot escape those jarringly awful disapproval numbers. Polling by the Washington Post and NBC show the president's disapproval at an all-time high for his presidency, 56%. And particularly in the NBC poll, 74% say they have concerns about the president's mental fitness. The White House breaking out its magical big broom to try to sweep it all away.
Our focus is going to be on what we can do to continue to deliver for the American people. Polls are polls, right? They are going to be all over the place. They're going to they don't tell the whole story, actually. And that is just the way a poll is.
Well, she's right. They have moved down. They've gotten so much worse for this president ever since the day after that deadly pullout from Afghanistan. He has never bounced back. So not all over the place, just firmly going south. 7 candidates will be on stage for the second Republican primary debate. Biden's campaign has deployed, you see him, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, to debate pushback on Republicans' comments. So he'll kind of be the spin doctor when it's all over. Newsom's name often comes up as a potential replacement to Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket. That's interesting, and that's who they chose. I wonder how Kamala, the VP, feels about that. Power panel now. Mollie Hemingway, Fox News contributor and editor-in-chief for The Federalist. Doug Shoen, former Clinton advisor and Democratic pollster. Great to see you both. Doug, I'm coming to you first. You're the vice president. You're Kamala Harris, and they pick this guy, also from your state of California, to go give the rebuttal, if you will, after that debate.
Well, my take on that is it is a direct personal insult to the vice president. It also, Harris, to be clear, is a acknowledgement. I was going to say tacit, but I mean explicit acknowledgement that her poll numbers are even worse than Joe Biden's fading poll numbers. Sure. And your introduction, Harris, to be completely candid, is exactly right. This is crisis time. Their Bidenomics advertising is not working. The sense that the country is out of control and is at drift on the wrong direction is growing. And bottom line, Democrats everywhere are increasingly saying Joe Biden shouldn't run.
Mollie Hemingway, how do Republicans capitalize off of this?
Well, this is interesting to have Gavin Newsom here. He's less a surrogate and more a reminder of why Democrats are not super excited about their aging, their troubled president whose policies are so unliked. These polls are kind of all over the place, but they all point in the same direction, that the Biden strategy of running on economics is not going well. You see in some of these polls that Republicans have an advantage on the economy that has never before been seen, so they should capitalize on that. There's also the issue that the Biden strategy seems to be to literally try to imprison one's political opponents. That is backfiring horrifically. Like when you see that in head-to-head matchups, Trump is beating Biden, it just shows you that the strategy of indicting Trump, in all these different municipalities is not working well for Democrats.
Well, and I don't know if you tuned in recently on that very subject in some of the legacy and liberal media. They seem to be shocked by that. Like, why aren't all the indictments giving Biden a boost? Well, he's got his own troubles through his son. That might be part of it, but maybe they just want anybody but him. That's what other polling shows as well. All right, there's reportedly a growing concern, fear, it's being said, inside Biden's inner circle, that the biggest threat to his reelection may not come from the Republican nominee, but a third-party spoiler. One Democrat close to the White House told NBC this quote, "It's pretty bleeping concerning." Of course, we added the bleeping part because we can't say what he really said. Well, that same report says Hillary Clinton recently met with the president and warned him to take a third-party threat seriously. Democrat Congressman Dean Phillips of Minnesota has been floating a possible primary challenge to Joe Biden.
I am thinking about it. I haven't ruled it out. I think it's a steep slope, that. But I do feel strongly, and I have a conviction that it's important for democracy to have choices, to have competition, particularly in light of what I'm reading, the polling, the data. I'm concerned that there is no alternative.
All right, before we do more polling, I want to go straight to Doug Shoen for just a moment here. What does this tell you? And I know potentially it can hurt both parties to have third-party inclusion, because some people will just sit home. But Democrats seem especially worried. Why?
As they should be. There are 3 now, Harris, count likely or potential candidates. Cornel West, who is running on a far left platform. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has said that he's willing to entertain the possibility of running as a libertarian. And the No Labels group has been pursuing publicly West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin for him to run as a moderate Democratic alternative. If any 1 or 2, much less 3 of that group runs, it will make a difficult election for Joe Biden almost impossible.
Wow. All right, Mollie, I'll come to you on this. It is simply a scorching New Yorker magazine cover depicting Trump, Biden, McConnell, and Pelosi all using walkers. Look at that. Now, as we showed you earlier, voters have deep concern over Biden's mental fitness. Age tends to come up in those conversations, too. Axios reporting that his aides have a don't let him trip mission. Somebody's actually assigned to keeping him upright, apparently. They're taking extra steps to prevent him from tripping in public, like he did on the Air Force Academy stage back in June. They include having the president wear tennis shoes and using shorter stairs to board Air Force One. Charlemagne the God blasting the president over the weekend over this blunder. Let's watch.
A lot of people are upset that Joe Biden referred to LL Cool J as a boy. As you can hear, he corrected himself on the spot. You know why Joe Biden corrected himself? Because he's 137 years old. He fully understands the word boy in the racial context around a white man referring to a black man as boy. See, boy is absolutely a white racist word when used in a certain context. It doesn't matter how many black people you have in your administration. Doesn't matter how many black people you have right for you. If it's not authentic to him, then it won't come off as authentic to anyone.
Well, that seems particularly stinging, Mollie.
Well, it does. And the fact that the New Yorker is even acknowledging some of these age problems, which are really more a problem for Mitch McConnell and President Biden and much less of an issue for Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump. But these are, America voted for this man knowing full well what his age was. The thing that I find interesting is more about how corporate media are acknowledging some of this age-related decline after doing a very good job of covering it up. And that is where this third-party issue can be in play. In 2020, one of the smartest things Democrats did was keep the Green Party off the ballot in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Those are 2 states where it really matters. They're going to have a lot more trouble keeping third parties off the ballot, and that will, in these states where you have tiny margins, that could really make a difference.
Well, No Labels has raised a lot of money. So they can push to get themselves on ballots. They can meet deadlines. They can do that. Real quickly, Doug, I want to hit the race issue with you, though, because I just can't believe this president has weighed in again. I mean, he does this. He called a member of his own advisory council in the White House a boy at a public event. I mean, what is it? And you'll recall Charlemagne the God, when Biden was running, said, well, I tell you what, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Charlemagne responded, I don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. Take a look at my record, man, Biden shot back. I mean, look, he's been wading around in this swampy water for a while.
Well, he has been in the swampy water. We just saw what I thought, Harris, was a compelling presentation on urban crime, and it's spiraling out of control. I much would prefer the president, instead of playing these rhetorical games and making these very unfortunate and ill-advised rhetorical gaffes, talking about what he's going to do to improve the quality of life of people of color, particularly African Americans. I think that would help the campaign, particularly with his flagging numbers with minorities.
Yeah, I mean, you think about just before the pandemic, former President Trump had the lowest unemployment rate of black men, particularly in this country. All right, good to see you both. I'll bring you back soon.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.